All right. Welcome everyone to the live stream. And I think last time this was a little quiet, so I'm going to boost it up a bit. Let's get it really nice and boosted, I guess. Check, check, check. Okay, I think we should be a little bit more loud this time. Let's see.
Check, check, check.
Yeah, I think we should be good. So let me know if it needs to be adjusted one way or the other on the audio. But welcome to the March live stream. It feels like only a few weeks ago we were doing the February live stream. That's because I think we did the February live stream like literally on February 28th, I want to say. It's like the very last day of February, but we're here in March and we're doing our live stream. And as always, I have some topics and things that we're going to do. We're going to talk about state of the channel. We'll look at the end of month recap. I've actually set up the full studio so that we can use the GFX camera to do some candy art live. And if we have enough time, I'll also try to edit that candy art as well here live on the stream. So that'll be fun. Either way, I'll probably end up posting a story with one of the images from tonight's photo shoot. But we'll also probably talk camera related stuff, lots of things to discuss. And as always, if you're watching live and you want to participate, absolutely, please do. But also feel free to throw out any suggestions for things that you want me to cover in this live stream. And we can really talk about just about anything. And then also, if you're watching this and it's not live, you definitely can still participate as well. Obviously, it won't be live, but any comments that you leave on the video, I will go back and respond to. And if you have a good topic of something that you want to talk about, but we haven't, been live when you suggested it, it can obviously be thrown into next month's live stream. And yeah, also, if you enjoy the live stream and you like the content, please do give me a like because that definitely helps out the channel tremendously. Flipping off something that was running over there on the side. Hopefully we won't have too many technical difficulties today. We'll see what happens. This is always known for technical difficulties, especially the main camera. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so as far as this live stream getting us kicked off here, a couple of things I wanted to talk about, sort of upcoming content and also some of the videos that I've been posting. I did switch to posting on Tuesdays after probably a year of posting on Saturdays. And I kind of realized that it was like over a year ago, I thought to myself, like, oh, I should try out different days for posting content and just like see if there's better days. And I started posting on a Saturday, and I guess maybe I got some initially good like feedback from that. I don't know. And then I just started posting on Saturdays and I never looked back for the longest time until more recently I was looking back and I was thinking, wait a minute, I think Saturdays are actually possibly the worst day to post videos. And maybe that's why views have like in part tanked. So I looked at, you get a lot of analytics data and I looked at the data. I was like, oh yeah, Saturdays are the worst day to post content for me specifically. And so I switched it to Tuesday, which is a much busier day according to the analytics. And already it seems like there's been a pretty big improvement from that standpoint. So for any of you who are longtime viewers, if you notice that we swapped from Saturday to Tuesday, that's why, is that Saturday is not a good day to post content. But then in addition to that, I started to also do a lot more shorts content, which this channel typically doesn't do well on. Like I had a gaming channel I used to do, and anytime I posted a short, I mean, that thing would do like 20,000 views at least. And I think I have a couple shorts that are like close to 1 million. But on this channel, when I post a short, it'll do like 500 views, which is really not a lot for a short. Like usually you want like tens of thousands at least. So I don't know, maybe there is something to posting shorts content on a separate channel from the channel that you post your full videos on. I know a lot of creators do that, but that's a lot more work than I want to do. So I'm just going to post them all on the same channel, and I'm going to do live streams on the same channel, and it's just all going to be on one channel. And if that doesn't work out, then I'll just have to deal with it. This camera keeps freezing again. I thought we had totally solved the freezing problem. That could be a major issue tonight. Let me see if I disconnect this. And I don't know why it does that. I knew I shouldn't have updated it. OBS asked me if I wanted to update to a new version of OBS, and I said yes, but at the time I thought, everything's been running so smoothly. Maybe we shouldn't do it. And then I did it like a fool. Yeah, and then once it gets frozen, it seems like it just never unfreezes. There we go. I just deactivated and reactivated it. Maybe I'll just keep deactivating and reactivating. That's so annoying. I'm gonna have to figure out why that is, that it does that. Oh, that is like the worst. That's like the thing that most often goes wrong is either my audio, you can't hear me because I'm muted, or the camera's freezing. So if it freezes, just let me know and I'll smash this button here. But anyway, so yeah, anyway, the content change Saturdays. Now I'm putting out a couple shorts per week as well. And it seems to be going pretty well. Outside of the channel, which I do have a few more videos coming. I've got, let's see. So I have a video that I'm in production for that is the Olympus C7070, which is an early 2000s camera. It's like a bridge camera. And I bought this camera probably 2 years ago to do a video on and to play around with it and have fun. And then I literally have never taken enough photos with it to make a video. And I think the realization is that I just don't like the camera. It's actually a pretty cool camera, but I think I just don't like it. And so it's been 2 years of me not doing it, but I've finally taken a lot of photos with it. And I think it's just time to do a video on it and maybe call it quits from that camera thereafter. But I've got that coming up. I also have a really personal video coming up, and I don't want to tease it yet because I've done very little, if any, work for it at this point. So I want to wait on that one. But a very personal one, probably, which will come like end of March or sometime in April, I think. And then there is the 645Z, which Alex from What Other Hobbies has lent me. And I've done a few videos on that camera in kind of comparison of the 645D. But I've been wanting to do kind of a standalone like photo walk / maybe just like the camera itself. That said, I'm kind of at the end with that camera because I'm going to be moving soon. And so I need to send that camera back to Alex, mostly because I just don't want to have to deal with it during a big move. And I know that there's going to be so much happening and so much that I need to do at that time. So I really don't want to also have to be thinking about like trying to make sure the camera doesn't get damaged in the move, and also like have to, I don't know, keep track of it in case he wants it back. Like, does it get put too far into storage or something? Like, it's just easier to send it back to him. So that does mean that it's kind of the end of getting to use that camera. So maybe I can make one last video with it, get to play around with it one last time, because it is a really fun camera to shoot with. So that's kind of coming up. I'm also working on a video about the gallery experience. Now that that's wrapped up and the gallery has concluded, I've started to apply and submit to other galleries. And but I think it would be really cool to put together sort of like one part, this was the experience I had, and another part, here's how you can do that too, for anyone who's interested. I think for me, what took so long to do the gallery was just I didn't know what steps were involved. I didn't know what to prepare for, or how to go about doing it. And so that kind of paralyzed me a little bit. I'm something about me personally, I am really good for the most part at knocking out to-dos if I know what the steps are. If I can visualize what that end result looks like and I know at least a few of the starting steps along the way, I can just start knocking that out. But when I have no concept of what the final product looks like or the final sort of like goal looks like, and I also don't really know where to start or what steps to do, then I'm paralyzed most of the time. So maybe some folks are like me and it would be helpful for me to share like start to finish. What did I do? What happened? What things do I wish I knew more? You know, all that good stuff. And then there's also another secret video that's not very personal. It's not like the personal video, but there's another video I want to do, but I feel like there's a surprise factor to it. And I'm honestly thinking about maybe just doing it later in the year and not doing it anytime soon. So we'll see. But those are the upcoming videos. In addition to, I just recorded one today. I had a moment of inspiration. What was it that I recorded? Yes, the motivational creative roller coaster is the concept of the video. And I've recorded it. It's going to be a pretty straight up just talking head video. No B-roll, no cutaways, just me talking for 15 minutes, which works for other channels. I don't know if it works for this channel, but that's what the video is going to be. We have Jeffrey here. Hey, what's up? Welcome. Doing a little live stream. We're just getting started. Time to pop a little popcorn, get a drink, and settle in. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining. I was just talking about the video. The concept of it is, I think, relevant to a lot of people. And it's the idea of when you're realistically doing anything beyond even just creativity, but I think it's most noticeable when you're doing something creative. You have those times where you're highly motivated and you're feeling that creativity. You've got that inspiration just flowing, and it's like boom, boom, boom. You're coming up with ideas. You're visualizing steps that you need to take. You're executing on those steps, and you're just like knocking out a bunch of stuff. And that's kind of like the peak. And then, inevitably you're going to then go down, right? And you're going to hit the valley. And in the valley, you can't think of anything creative, can't come up with any ideas, lacking any motivation. Even if you know what the steps are that you need to take, it's just like, I have no interest or motivation in doing it. And then you start climbing back up again. Eventually you get out of that rut. And there's also that in-between time, which is really the most of the time of the roller coaster, is the in-between, the transition between peak and valley. And that's where you're kind of just in your normal state, where you're, having a normal amount of motivation, a normal amount of creativity, a normal amount of inspiration. And sometimes the peaks are really, really high. Sometimes the valleys are really low. Sometimes the peak will last only an hour. Sometimes it'll last a day, a couple days. Pretty rarely, I think for me, I'll have a peak go like a full week or maybe two, but that's a pretty extreme case. Usually that peak is a pretty short-lived feeling. And then, the valley could be really long, could be really short. But even that transition period, I think about it like when you're going up at the beginning of the roller coaster, you have a pretty long wait as you're rising to the top. But then once you get to the top, it's like an extremely fast transition to the bottom. And so those in between times, they can be really long, they can be really short. But I did a whole video about that concept, and then just sort of about how I cope with it to try to like maximize the good times and minimize the bad times. You know, when you're in that valley, how do you overcome not having motivation and not having the feeling of creativity and still be able to kind of like progress or get something done? So did a little video on that, probably put that out soon. Next week, a little teaser, on Tuesday, there's going to be a video about the zine that I made, and just kind of like mostly the process for how to make a zine. Because similarly to the gallery, I wanted to do a zine for a long time and didn't do it, in part because I didn't have enough images, but I also didn't really know like what are the steps to make a zine. And so I was a little bit paralyzed by just not knowing how to do it. So I wanted to make a video where I kind of outlined what I did to make a zine, and that way if somebody wants to do one for themselves, they'll know at least one version of how to do it. And so yeah, that one's going to be coming up on Tuesday. And then just a lot of other content. So I've been kind of on a roll, and I really need to like build up a stockpile of videos, because in April I'm going to be moving, and it looks like it's probably going to be April 10th. So what is it? April 20th, I think today. So like in 20 days, that's going to be happening very soon. And so it might be good, knowing myself, it might be good to have some like stuff kind of like set up through April, so that I can settle in a little bit and not go crazy trying to produce videos like while I'm not even fully moved in. But currently I don't have a backlog. I'm releasing them week to week, so I need to have one of those peaks so I can really bust my butt and get some content pre-created. Jeffrey said the candy zine is on my special coffee table. White gloves to touch it. Hey, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I appreciate you picking up a copy of the zine. It was really exciting to make that and then get to put it out into people's hands and know that artwork is out there. I don't know if I'm gonna do a second copy. I think I have 4 copies left, minus this one right here. That one's mine forever. I'll never sell that one. But I think outside of that, there's only 4 copies left. So I was kind of thinking like, do I do another batch? And if I did, I feel like I would want to differentiate it from the original batch. Like I kind of want that original set to never get done again. And so maybe one thing my girlfriend and I were kind of like brainstorming, we were like, what if we changed the cover and made it like a pink candy type thing? And then that way it's like the cover would be totally different. Maybe all the images inside are the same, but it would differentiate version 1 from version 2, something like that. But yeah, I don't know. My plan has been, with the framed images that didn't sell at the gallery, I'm resubmitting them now to other galleries. So my hope is that they will then get set up. And if there's a reception for those, I'll bring the remaining 4 copies of the zine and sell them. But if there was going to be like a really big reception again, I'd kind of want to have like a few more copies, because I want to say like I sold probably 20 copies at the reception. So 4 would definitely be a lot less to have on hand if I get into another gallery. But we'll see. I haven't been accepted into any other galleries yet. So if you know of any galleries that are openly accepting submissions, please let your boy know, because I'm increasing the radius as I continue. So anyway, Get enough zines, then you do a hardcover version with several in them. Yeah, definitely. I think that is a big part of it too, is maybe there'll be another zine, but it'll contain images that have been either that didn't make it into the first zine just due to how much space there was, or that have been produced since then, which we'll be doing some candy artwork tonight. Or it could just be like waiting until there's enough images to do another zine. And then, yeah, to your point, eventually there's enough zines to do a book. That would be crazy. If I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I could do a book, but if I do ever get to that point, that would be awesome to look back on the path, the journey to get there. I was really enjoying, there's this book, and I might go grab it, but there was this book that is about Koreatown in LA, and I saw it at Barnes and Nobles of all places. I was like, oh man, this looks pretty interesting, and the images are kind of cool because there's like a story about each business and the person behind each business, and then some photographs. And there's some really interesting ones in there. I think I need to bring back the photo book reviews that I used to do on this channel. They weren't, nobody watched them, but they were fun to make. So I might have to do another one of those. But I am, as I mentioned, going to be moving soon. So all of this background that has only changed slightly over the years. I was looking back at some earlier videos, and it was fairly similar. There's been a few things that have changed. There used to be a computer back here. Now there's a little TV. But more or less it stayed relatively the same for like the last, I don't know, 2+ years. And now it's going to be a whole new place. And also there are other places in this apartment, like the living room and the dining room, where I have also occasionally changed it up and filmed stuff in those places. I used to do that a little bit more, and I guess I just kind of got settled into this room being the main spot for the talking head portion of videos. But yeah, when I move into the new place, I'm gonna have to kind of figure out where are all the spaces that I can film in. But I will also be living with someone, and so I'll have to be also considerate and conscious of not dominating spaces that are shared spaces. But it also does open up a unique opportunity that the background, at least behind me, will be totally open. It could be anything. So I have to kind of decide how I want to design the background, because I don't think I want to just repeat the background that I've had the last 2 or 3 years of this channel. So it's exciting, but it is also a little bit, I don't know if stressful is the right word, but thinking about like, oh, what am I going to put back there? And I'll need to figure it out pretty quick, because once I move in, I'll want to set it up real quick so I can start filming in the space. But yeah, I think there'll probably be like a video changeover. Like I need to figure out how that will work when I change from this studio space to the new studio space. So I have a few ideas. I have one that's really exciting, which is also going to potentially be incredibly space saving, which is to take the micro studio that I have over here, which you guys will be seeing in a little bit, and the background that I have here, and finding a way to merge them to where I can set up the studio on the background and shoot. So it'll be space saving. The only downside is sometimes I love to have a good bit of mess going on in the studio, the micro studio, and then still have this background nice and polished, so I can be like recording a new video at the same time that I'm shooting something, and that might not be possible with the new setup, unless I just have like a different, like I film in the living room occasionally or something like that. So it'll be interesting. I think you guys will like the new spot though. There will be more room, and that is pretty cool. So with that being said, I think now would be a great time to jump over to the end of month recap for February and kind of look through some of the images that I took in February, but didn't end up using in any videos or in any posts anywhere. So these are the first time anyone other than me will be seeing these photos, and so I'm giving them their chance to shine. So let's jump over and take a look at photos from February. All right. So we're right here, and our first photo is some flowers. I want to say that this was from Valentine's Day. So this was like mid-February. And it was in a pretty dark spot, but there was some light kind of coming through the window and just barely kind of touching the flower here, this one that's like in the center. And I thought that was kind of cool. This was on the Olympus OMD EM10 Mark III, the mouthful, which I feel like doesn't do super well in low light situations. But, and especially the lens I have on there is nothing special. It's like the super tiny pancake kit zoom lens. So, you know, it's setting expectations. If I had a prime lens on there, it might have been a little bit better. But I took the shot, and then there was sort of this like not as contrasty kind of like soft look to it. And the reason it stood out to me is it reminded me a lot of like 90s advertising. Let me know if this resonates with any of you, but it's like there was sort of a softness to images, almost like a faded look to them, which I think in part is like a little bit the look of film, which this doesn't to me look like film, but it's like that magazine, like maybe the colors that they used to print in magazines, but it had like a softer feel to it and a very delicate kind of lighting choice. And to me, like that's especially relevant in the flower up in the top right, the purple flower, how it's like very kind of soft, but the light is just ever so delicately passing across it. So it just, I don't know, reminded me of the 90s really, really strongly. And I liked that. So wanted to include that one. And then this one is actually from the reception. And now that I think about it, I probably could have included more photos from the reception, because ultimately in February, I was so busy prepping artwork and prepping the reception. And then even after the reception, it was getting ready to do the artist talk and doing the artist talk. So there's like so much going on in February that I didn't shoot as many photos because I was very preoccupied with some of the other things. Also, just like so many days I spent figuring out the best method for shipping out the zine and then shipping out the zine. So there just wasn't a ton of photographs happening, but I could have included a few more from the reception, and I didn't think to, but this is probably the only photo from the reception that I'm including here, which is actually my brother, who videotaped the entire reception. And he did so on my Canon R7, which is the footage that ended up in the actual video of the reception. But he also filmed the entire reception on this Sony Handycam. And he sent me the footage, just like an hour-long footage. And I haven't figured out what to do with it. It didn't quite get to me in time to make it into the video. But I also feel like an hour-long footage, like, I don't know what I could do with it other than keep it for the memories, or maybe it ends up in the other gallery video. I don't know. Maybe I'll play it on a live stream at some point. But it's great footage, super entertaining. So he does a lot of footage of bands on one channel, which is Tape Collector. We've talked about that before here on the channel, but he'll film like here in Austin entire sets. I say here in Austin, actually, he's now traveled to do it as well. He's like gone and filmed bands and gotten press passes to do so in like other cities and whatnot, which is really cool. Other states. But he'll film it all on Hi8, which is what he has here. I think this is probably his favorite camera. Or all kinds of stuff, VHS-C, full-size VHS, mini DV tapes, like all kinds of stuff. And then he'll post them onto his account. And then he has a second account, which is I think called Video Hell or something, that he just does like non-concert related VHS style video footage. But after the reception, we went out to the park. So right behind the gallery where this reception happened is a park that overlooks downtown Austin. And there's a hill at the top of the park that you can climb up onto. And so we went up there and I took some pictures of him as kind of like a thank you for photographing the reception, which was really cool. But let's see, Sony Handycam, love it. Yep. Something like a multimedia thing in a gallery with vintage TVs is always cool. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because we were actually going to have a TV set up next to, or actually really where I had ended up putting the zine. There was going to be a TV. It was actually this TV here, which I even purchased for that purpose. And there was going to be like a mix of footage of me like making the candy art and of like images of the candy art mixed in with sort of like, I guess, royalty free or fair use footage of like candy in factories. So that the idea being like, oh, we can find some like free B-roll from like the 1950s or 1970s of like just candy being processed. Like I'm thinking Mr. Rogers style, where he would just like go to a factory and show you how things were made, or I guess even the TV show, how it's made. But sort of splicing between that sort of stock candy creation footage and then just an image of candy, like the same type of candy image that I had framed up in the gallery. So essentially this TV would become a digital frame for all of those candy images that didn't end up making it into the gallery. And I thought that was going to be so cool. But we just couldn't figure out in time the logistics to do it and how to make sure like that the TV and whatnot didn't just get turned off or unplugged. So the idea is still there. I think maybe in a future gallery I could incorporate that. But I love the idea of like finding unique ways to display the art and having like essentially a slideshow of the candy artwork up on a TV like this, I think would be really cool as a way to have it. And if it did include like footage of me making the artwork, that could be fun too. But anyway, yeah, he helped me out a lot. I super appreciated his efforts there. And yeah. And then I included this one for fun, but also for funnies too. I forget what this was for. I think I was making a thumbnail for something, or I was taking a picture for a live stream. I don't know. Was I wearing this outfit in the last live stream? But whatever it was, and I really truly can't remember what it was for now. I ended up doing like one that was just funny. Like I'm stuck inside the camera and my fingers are like pressing up against the lens. Let me out, which is really dumb. It's especially dumb as I start to explain it. I'm like, oh, this sounds really dumb. But what I liked about this image, I don't even know how this happened, but like this finger, I guess you can't see my cursor in the screen, but one of these fingers, or a couple of these fingers, are like a little bit wider on the tip, almost as if my finger is pressing up against glass. And so it's, creating that effect. And I don't know how that happened, but it did on a couple of these fingers. So it almost looks like my fingers truly are pressing up against some glass and I'm trying to get out of there. But this was on the Canon R7, which is just, I still think, a really nice camera. I really hope they produce a lot more lens for this system. Like if Canon could come out with some really good prime lens or zoom lens, I'd buy them. Like, I don't know why they're so hesitant to support the APS-C RF line. Seems weird to me because it's a solid camera. But anyway, this is just with the Sigma zoom lens, and it's sharp. Like I'm thinking about grabbing another one of those Sigma primes that came out for this, but we'll see. And then Alamo Cinema 4. This is Alamo Draft House in Austin. It is right down the street from where I used to live. It's still the closest Alamo currently to me. And it's actually like within walking distance from my girlfriend's apartment. Although as much as we've talked about walking to this Alamo, we've literally never walked to this Alamo. We always drive. But it's, I don't know, to me, it's such a nice theater because it's so small. Like a lot of the Alamo Draft Houses are getting really big and they're like brand new and they look polished and nice. This one has kind of like that community theater vibe because it only has like 4 theaters. It's really small, kind of shitty. And one thing that's interesting about it is that they actually rent movies because they bought Vulcan Video, which is a local video shop that went under. They bought the full collection. And so you literally have all these carts in the entry hallway that are just full of DVDs, and you just pick them out and you go rent them, which I never do because I have a membership to another video rental spot here in town. So there's no point in renting from 2 different places, but I think that's cool. I don't know how long it'll last now that Sony has bought it. I don't know if they'll still think that's cool to rent movies. And I'm kind of curious, like how often do they actually rent movies at Alamo? I can't imagine often, but anyway, this was shot on the Olympus C7070 after watching The Monkey, which can't recommend, but it's there if you want to watch it. And I think this might be the last one. This was also shot on the Olympus C7070. And I will say again, like, I don't think I'm going to keep this camera. I'm certainly not going to keep it and actually use it. If I did keep it, it would just be as like a decoration, which I don't really like doing. I like to just find broken cameras and use those for decorating. But if it's like a functioning camera, I'd rather someone be using it. But I don't know. I feel very mixed about the images that I get from the camera and just the experience shooting it. It just isn't satisfying to me. And I have enough cameras, so I feel like I'm going to review this one and then just sell it for whatever I paid for it and get it into someone else's hands. But that said, I took it out downtown on just like a beautiful day. And part of the reason I included this photo is because I think in February, as far as like nice weather days, this was probably the nicest weather in all of February. And it was just beautiful. And my girlfriend and I think on this particular day, we like walked the boardwalk. And I think she was probably cold and didn't have as much fun as I did, but I just had like a blast, like walking this boardwalk and through like a little nature trail. I was like, man, this is a moment. I am enjoying this moment. I never want to forget this moment. This feels like it could be a core memory of this year. And so looking back on this photo now, I'm like, yeah, what a beautiful day that was. It just makes me so happy thinking back. Like, I wish I could just live that day over and over and over. Um, but also, this image looks great. Like, it's not perfect. There's better images out there for sure. But compared to the other images I've gotten from this camera, like the colors were pretty much on point. Resolution looks good. Like, it just sort of pops. So this is like the very best you can possibly get out of the Olympus C7070. It gets worse from here, and it gets a lot worse, unfortunately. But maybe once I finally produce that video, you guys will be able to decide for yourself that particular camera. So yeah, that's my recap. So we had our downtown beautiful day. We had the Alamo Draft House, kind of a, maybe not the best movie I've seen this year, but just a nice evening. And then we had myself goofing around a little bit, being a silly guy. My brother, after the reception, taking some pictures of him for fun. And then a really nice set of flowers, 90s style. Yeah. And those are our end of February recap. So March recap is definitely going to have more better photos, if that's a thing, because I've just been shooting so much more in March, and there's just so many more photos that are not going to end up in a video. They're not going to end up getting posted anywhere. And so this will be a good time to look at that. But with that being said, we're 43 minutes into this. There are still some other things. I want to talk about some photography news, and but that's going to be towards the end. And I think I also might want to kind of like show this really cool photography book, because I think it's a really cool concept and like blend of documentary and photography. And I think it's important for photography channels or just photography content creators to start making more content surrounding the actual photography itself. And we're all guilty of talking about gear too much. And so I think it would be cool to bust out that book, maybe at the end of this live stream, to kind of go over it. Like we did that Russia book that one time. That was so much fun. That literally changed my opinion about that Russia photography book. I did not like it at first, and then suddenly I did like it. But before we do any of that, we are actually going to do the candy art photography now so that we have enough time to do it. And so what that involves is I've got the Fujifilm GFX 50S. I have an adapter on that camera so I can use the Pentax 645 120 millimeter f4 macro lens. That's all a mouthful. And then I picked up a candy called Sour Strips that I want to use for a bigger project later, but I thought it would be kind of cool to pull it out and do an image with it now, and then do another image with it at a later time. So we're going to pull that out and make a little mess here. And I have the studio hopefully set up where it's actually going to work. And I've got a little lav mic here. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear me when we go over into the studio. So yeah, that's what's coming up here. There are cameras that I gel with better than others. I don't know if it's just me, ergonomics, or just how it feels in my hands. Yeah, honestly, when it comes to a camera, it's a lot of factors. I think ergonomics, I think how it feels in your hand, or like how well equipped, like even button layout, that's certainly a big factor in whether you like a camera or not. I think it's also when you look at the JPEG or the raw file, whatever your kind of like straight out of camera image looks like, it's like, does that image work for what you want to do? There's not really too many cases where like the raw file is wrong. It's just, does the raw file look like how you ultimately want to edit it? Or does it give you what you need as far as a starting point? And you know what I find frustrating in a raw file, someone else might be like, no, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want it to look like. So I think it's that. I think it's, you know, the features that it has, you know, maybe the size, or, you know, there's so many different factors as to whether a camera works for you or not. Like this Canon R7 that I picked up, it has drawbacks compared to the Sony a6400 that I was using for the YouTube stuff. Like, to be honest, the Sony camera was actually sharper. Like when I would film side by side, I liked the color and the look of the Canon better, and it had like more features. But the Sony actually was sharper, which was kind of weird because it was way older. And I don't know why that is, but it's like, okay, yeah, that's definitely like a benefit of that Sony camera. But ultimately, just like the feeling of this Canon camera, the image quality that it produces, like, I don't know, it just all resonated with me better. And even though it's a crop sensor camera, and you know, if it works, it works, right? Same with my Micro Four Thirds camera. It's like some of the images it gets just look awesome if you shoot it in the right situation. But anyway, cool. Well, this is going to be a long piece over here. I need to turn on a few things. I need to get mic'd up here. And also, if you guys have guesses for the video of the month that we're playing, let me know. I think we're actually going to be playing 2 videos here because I forgot to delete the other video. But this is the main one. And I actually haven't finished watching this. I started to watch it, got most of the way through, had to return it, and then I ended up re-renting it so that I could do something bad, which is how I have this here now. But I actually haven't seen the ending, so I need to not pay attention to it. Otherwise, I'm going to be spoiled for the ending here. But let me get these cameras turned on. I've been getting shocked all day touching this camera equipment, and it's actually been shocked enough times that it's actually made me mad. So I'm also a little scared to touch any of this stuff. And then I need to turn on a light. So give me 1 second here. Okay, and then we may end up turning off this other light. We'll see. But I think we'll be shooting flash bright enough that it won't be too big of a deal. So let's jump over to the studio and hope all this stuff actually works. Okay. So you guys should be able to hear me on the lav mic. Give me a thumbs up if you can, or if you can't. And of course, now I also have to fix this other. All right, awesome. So we've got one camera working. Let's see. That's that. I maybe just turned. Oh, I just turned this one off. It was on the whole time. I forgot I left it on. There we go. Cool. I did forget to take all of the data off the screen, so unfortunately, you guys are going to have the data here, but that's okay. Better than nothing. Delicious. So, yeah, we're going to be working with this bag of candy here and setting up some sort of scene. And then we've got the Fujifilm camera, which I'm actually tethered in at the moment. I need to start the software really quick, and hopefully it will just flawlessly tether. But I feel like it won't. Based on my luck, which is usually not good, I'm not sure that it will actually tether. I'm going to set up the chat here so I can kind of see it, but it'll be a little harder. But yeah, cool. So what I always do is I always start by cleaning the surface. So we're going to do that. And I may even actually, since we got so much light coming in, maybe I'll drop this down a little bit. Yeah, I think that's better. Cool, but let me start up the software here. I need to have multiple screens. I need to have the computer screen up here. I need to have the main camera up here so you guys can see the artwork and also see the results coming in here to Lightroom. I did do a test, so at the very least I know that it can tether with Lightroom. Tethered capture, start tethered capture, and we're going to call this one, I'm actually just going to name it after the candy. Sour strips. All right. We're going to flip the camera on. Oh boy, this receiver was on the whole time. Good thing these receivers from Godox, they don't use a lot of power. And so when I leave it on for weeks at a time, it's actually still usually pretty good. And it looks like battery on the flash is good, so we should be in pretty good shape here. All right, so yeah, tethering works. Now, actually, one question I do have, though, is can I still hit the shutter button while I tether? I was doing tethered capture so that I could set the camera up high, focus it, and then not have to be like standing up on the stool, which is actually what I'm going to end up doing today. So maybe tethering doesn't even work in this case, but let's see. God, that was loud back there. Jeez. Okay, yeah, so it does still work if I just fire from the camera itself. Great. So we're set up then. We're ready to rock and roll, and then they'll be auto imported into Lightroom, and we'll be able to do that. So first things first, we want to get rid of as much dirt and debris on this background as possible, because then we might get away with not doing any editing. And if we do have to edit, we'll be doing less editing. Hopefully I don't knock over the camera that's over here. Yeah, we just wipe it down real quick. Ultimately what's going to happen though is, like, as I'm working, there is going to be debris that lands on this. There's going to be like eyelashes that fall off my face. It's kind of insane how often eyelashes are in the photos. Like, am I losing all of my eyelashes? Because there's so much in every shot. There's always an eyelash. And yet I look at myself in the mirror and I have the same amount of eyelashes I've always had. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. Okay, so we've cleaned it. And I had actually set a computer on this backdrop, like a really old computer that I was kind of like cleaning up for my father. And when I picked it up, there was rubber where the rubber grips were. And basically it had been sitting for so long that the rubber had started to like do that thing where it starts to, like, I don't know, unbond from itself and becomes like sticky and like leaves debris everywhere. So that's permanent on this backdrop now. All right. So now, other problem with like cleaning the backdrop is like the nature of this candy is going to be that it's very, it's going to leave a lot of debris from the sugar. But this is what the candy looks like. So it's just these colorful little strips here of candy. Kind of like sugary bacon. We've got some bacon here. And it has already dumped so much sugar all over the backdrops. Cleaning it might have actually been a complete waste. But I think the way this will work best is actually if we kind of make a pile. Smells interesting. Kind of smells like rubber, actually. Well, actually, you know what I'm also going to do is, since this is already making a huge mess, I'm going to try to like find really good pieces. Like I would say this is a pretty good piece because it's pretty straight and it's not like too crinkled. And so we want to put all the best pieces at the top. And then like as an example, a piece like this one where it's all like, it's kind of hard to see, but where it's all crinkled up and it's not laying flat, like that one's a good one, good candidate for like bottom of the stack here. This is another one where it's like it's broken kind of in the middle right here, and you can't see on the camera too well, but it has like incorrect dye on here, so we'll just kind of throw that at the bottom. Sometimes they're all bad, sometimes they're all good. Ooh, this one's broken. But I think having like a lot of this on here and kind of making like almost a 3D sort of effect. One thing I should do on this camera is maybe go in here and set this a bit lower. And then hopefully it'll focus. It's still focusing up so high. Maybe if I block it, it'll, there we go. It loves this paper towel thing. Stop looking at the paper towel, man. All right. Hopefully that should make that stuff in focus a little bit better. But yeah, if we can make this like 3D where we'll get like a lot of stuff in focus, but there'll be some kind of like blurring of the background, that would be really cool. Just thinking maybe some blue tack to pick up the crumbs so you don't need to wipe things down when you set up your candy creations. Yeah, honestly, I have done some like tape before, or like just some other like little things to kind of pick up the dust, because it is true, like once you've laid out, especially when you're doing like a pattern type of thing, then it's so hard to like get in there and like use your finger to like kind of pull stuff out without knocking the candy around. Like then the candy gets all moved and you're like, no, it was in the perfect spot. I had it perfectly set up and now it's all messed up. Anyway. Ooh, that's a great one right there. This one's actually not too bad. I almost want to kind of like form them. Like, yeah, like make a little ribbon. Man, I'll tell you, I ate dinner. I am starving right now. And I have nothing to eat. I mean, I guess I could have my leftovers, but then me of tomorrow is going to be pissed when lunchtime comes around and there's nothing ready. Okay. I didn't expect this candy to be so sugary and also like so kind of busted. One thing I was thinking about doing with this candy is like getting some kind of like stick or something and then wrapping the candy around it and having stuff sort of branch off, like not quite like a tree, but you could kind of picture a tree. Okay, there's a couple more really good pieces. Actually, this one's a great piece. This one is not. And I don't want it to be too high. I do want to spread it out a little bit here. What have you guys been getting into? What creative projects or endeavors have you succeeded or struggled in lately? I want to start building up some height here. There we go. That one didn't quite work out. It has a mind of its own. But yeah, I actually, now that I'm messing with these, I had a feeling I could like make something out of them, but they do seem very brittle, which is a little bit of a bummer. Maybe I'll do it like that. There we go. And I'm curious how these colors, because these are very colorful, I wonder how they're going to show up. Got another person jumped here. GFX RF copper. No, I don't have that GFX. It's the 50S is what we're shooting with today. Okay. Yeah, I guess a lot of people will be thinking, oh my God. Oh, wow. The candy bag fell, and at the bottom, before it fell, I could see it's just like full of sprinkled sugar. But it fell and it landed like right side up. So, whew, I got lucky there. I was about to be like, oh no, what a huge mess that's going to be to clean up. It's literally just like, I don't know, a cup full of sugar at the bottom of this bag. That would have been an absolute nightmare. I would have been so mad. Cool. So, I think in this case, the fact that there is like sprinkled candy, sugar everywhere, like that's okay. That would actually probably work for this type of shot, since the candy is so full of, like, it might even actually be good to put the sprinkled stuff on top once we have the layout done. Just like pour it all over. Sounds like a mess, but sometimes you gotta make a mess to make some art, you know what I mean? You can't be afraid. Okay, so I'm looking down, because I am gonna do a top-down shot on this one. So I'm gonna kind of fill in a few holes here. Ooh. God, it doesn't feel good going in between your nail bed and like your nail. Ooh. Oh, asking if I will buy one or not. I am going to talk about that camera later on the stream. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I would have any use for it. It wouldn't make sense for me to have the GFX RF, because I tend to shoot a lot of like extreme telephoto stuff. So the fact that it has like a wide angle lens, I just don't really use wide angle lens almost at all. Anytime I've bought a wide angle lens, I've always regretted it. I think the max that I tend to do is like 35 millimeter. And really the time where that happens is maybe when I do the carnival long exposures. I'll do sometimes a wider lens, but what I actually tend to favor doing is shoot the carnival ride from a distance and shoot it at like 110 or 120 millimeters. And that way I can kind of control the background and really hone in on just the ride itself. So yeah, even in that case, I tend not to do a wide angle lens. Although I do have on my Mamiya a 45 millimeter, which I want to say is like 28 millimeters in full frame terms, or something, somewhere right around there. But yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. Well explained, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not even really sure who that GFX RF is intended to really be for, but I will say it's not the first time a camera brand has done that, because I'm thinking about the Phase 1, I think it's like the XF line where it's literally a medium format, like 150 megapixel camera with a built-in like 23 millimeter lens. So it's like ultra wide. And then there's also a Leica something, I forget what the model is, where it's like similar kind of style. So Fujifilm's not the first to do a medium format fixed lens camera, but I'm still not quite sure I get it. But maybe I'm just missing something. I've been saying lately I'm pretty dumb, and so I might just be too dumb to understand it. Jeffrey said, shot some expired 120 film, but it failed. Then I tried building a cyanotype camera. Not had time to use it. So, but did you end up actually building the cyanotype? I think I'm saying it right. I'm waiting for spring for some life to come back. Everything brown here still. Yeah, one thing that's nice about Texas is even in the winter, like even in the dead of winter, most of the time it's not brown. But in the summer, that's when sometimes it will get really brown because everything's just dead from how hot it is. So, but yeah, still very green. Not quite as green. I think spring's going to just look absolutely beautiful this year. Okay. So I think we're getting our little pile here. I hope I made this wide enough. I'm a little worried that this might be too tightly condensed, but we are shooting 120 millimeter, so it probably will work out. Also, I do think I need to ribbon these a bit more. Okay, one more. How about you? Anyone buying the GFX RF? R, is that what it is? That's also kind of weird, like RF, like the Canon RF. Wonder, I heard it was supposed to be like rangefinder, but then it's not truly a rangefinder, so it's like, maybe it's not that. Okay, so we're gonna do some shots now. Kind of see what we've got so far in terms of how this is set up. So I'm gonna bring in the flash. I'm probably gonna kill this light up here, so it might get a little darker in here, but probably not too much, since I'm ultimately facing away from that light anyway. I just want to make sure the light, we're not getting too much of a warm color messing up our otherwise 5600 Kelvin shot. So you can kind of see the flash in there now. So this is how I usually like to do these, is I have, and we're going to bust out the step stool here, but I typically will put this light up here. This is not bright. I've been thinking about maybe buying like a really bright, I don't know, like Westcott or something. They're really expensive, so I don't want to do it. But this light gets used primarily just so that I can visually focus on what I'm trying to photograph. But once this flash kicks off, this is going to way overpower this light. So by the end of it, like maybe somewhere between 1 to 5% of the light coming into the image, it will be from this, and like 95 plus of the amount of light is actually just coming from this bright flash here. So let's also see, yeah, that's pretty much where I want it. And I'm probably going to raise this up a little, because the other downside here is that it will bump into my head while I'm trying to photograph. In a year or two, once a dentist gets bored with it, yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's a great camera. I'm not quite sure like what I personally would use it for, but I'm sure it is a great camera. That sensor is certainly a really great sensor. But it would be interesting in like some amount of years, like if I were to find it like super cheap, would I want to play with it? And I probably would. Probably want to play with it. All right, so we're tethered in here. And actually, let's see. Yeah, I think this is going to work. Like how much we've set up here is doable. Now we are manually focusing, and that could be a little bit of our Achilles heel here. F11. I think we need to go down to about 200th. See what we got. Okay. Let's go down a little bit more. I think I usually do these at 1/25th of a second. So let's try that. I think ISO we could probably go down a bit on. And F11, I'm actually going to pop this down to F8. So let's see if that's the sweet spot. That definitely sounded better. This thing was like blasting out a weird sound I never heard before. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. And guys, you're going to get to see this too, because we'll jump over into the software and take a look at it once we've shot a few of these. So, okay. So we're going to get up here. And actually, I'm not even wearing shoes this time, so this is like kind of a bad idea, to be honest. But this is how goofy I look when I'm making this art. I'm like up here on a step stool, hunched over, just ready to fall. You'd be surprised how often I almost fall off this thing. And that is my secret right there, folks, is that when I shoot these, especially because I'm manually focusing, because this adapter has no electronics in it, but even when I have the Pentax and I'm shooting and it has autofocus, I do still tend to manually focus, because I've just found, especially when you're working with something that's like razor thin like candy is, it's so easy for the camera to just end up focusing on the high contrast area, which is where the candy meets the backdrop. That's where the most contrast is happening. So it'll essentially always focus on the bottom of the candy. And because the candy's so small, when you're looking at it on the LCD, you're like, oh, it's in focus. And then you get to the computer and you zoom in, and you're like, oh, it's not. It's out of focus by just a little bit. So I've just kind of gone to the route of always manually focusing and just don't even use autofocus on the Candy Art series. But my trick to not waste too much time is to focus just slightly maybe past where I think the actual true focus point is, and then fire 3 shots where I slowly back off the focus point. And then when you do it that way, you're essentially guaranteed that one of the 3 shots is going to be at critical sharpness. And that means each time you do it, you're going to get one for sure in focus. So you're never like somehow stumbling into like the perfect angle and then being like, oh no, it's out of focus. So anyway, that's my trick. That's my little manual focus hack. I had a long chat with people about the RF today. The cost is too rich, but I do understand a bit about the fixed lens with the cropping of a 102 megapixel image. Does the Fujifilm have focal assist when you are in manual mode? It does, yeah. You can digitally zoom in. I will say, I kind of prefer the optical viewfinder of the Pentax. You obviously can't zoom in, so you're always just fully wide out, right? But there's sort of a nice factor of like, okay, I can set up how I want it to look, like frame it up, and then focus. And it's like, I don't know, you can kind of tell when it's in focus, when it's not. And if you're doing the 3-shot trick that I do, you always get at least one in perfect sharpness. And on the Fujifilm, you can digitally zoom in. There are some other focus assist tools that I don't use, but I use the digital zoom in trick. But ultimately, you're just looking at a digital image, and it's not a very high resolution digital image. So it's just not sharp enough to truly know if you have it. So you still got to go with the three image trick. But, okay, so looking at this, it looks good, but I think what I'm going to want to do here is adjust the light because, well, I'll probably take a few more. A lot of my work has heavy shadows, but these shadows might be too heavy, so we'll see. I'm going to do a couple more here, but then I may bring the light up a bit so I can shoot it a little further down in here. And I'm actually going to get stupid close on this one. So let's see. There is something to be said too. I kind of like the pile look. Like in this Olympus camera, this one here, like this shot is kind of cool, minus like the background. Obviously you don't want that household stuff in there. Yeah, I kind of like this. There's a little bit of a foreground blur and then still a little bit of a background blur. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here with the white balance? I think we might be in, oh, we're in auto white balance. Oops. Noob. Let's set that correctly. Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we found out the white balance was set to auto on just the first two shots and not at the end of this whole thing. That would have been really frustrating. Okay, so I'm going to recreate this shot, but I'm going to do it less foreground blur and get a little bit more background blur. Sometimes the foreground blur I feel like is distracting. So let's see. I might have done too much there. Okay, and then I'm gonna zoom in here. I think we're gonna have to lose this jacket. It's getting a little warm with these lights here. Okay. Let's take a look. What do we got? It's looking a little something. I know Pentax, when you use vintage lens, you can get the camera to beep when you are manually focusing while in focus. Interesting. Yeah, I think it does do that actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, my Pentax, yeah, it will beep even if I'm in the manual mode. On, I guess an FA lens would be considered a vintage lens. It's certainly not a digital version. So yeah, I guess it does do that. I didn't even think about that. I wonder if, yeah, if the Fujifilm would do it. I don't really listen to that though, because I don't trust it. Because I'm like, well, when it tells me it's in focus, is it thinking that it's the thing that I want in focus, you know? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, let's see. I think what I should also do here, you guys tell me, would it be helpful if I also added in, like maybe right down here, or maybe even like right up here, I could put like a little box that shows the Lightroom view. Because I was just going to show you guys all this stuff afterwards, but maybe you guys want to see it as it's being photographed. that shouldn't be too hard. While you think about that, I'm gonna move this light up a bit. I do think it's a little too shadowy. So I'm gonna adjust that down, shoot this up, just freaking break it into the headlight above. That's great. Good job, Colton. All right, now this is way high. But I think this is going to put a little more light down into the crevice, which will be good. I should have made sure that this was firing in the way that I wanted it to, but I didn't do that, so whoopsie. All right. So right now I'm just kind of trying some different different angles, kind of see what's interesting. See what I like. Screen went black. You're right, it did. Uh-oh. Did it turn off? No. It's still going. I think sometimes I ask my computer to process too much. There we go. Too many things at once. Yeah, why don't I see, this may be asking it again to do too much, but if I say do window capture, and then we'll just select Lightroom, shrink this down a bit, maybe just stick this up here because it's really bright anyway. How about that? Now you can see kind of what we're getting here. Might be a little more interesting. I don't know, that might also be like too small. Let me expand it a little bit. I can also go in and like transform it to make it trim out the settings panels and stuff. All right. Well, it's just something. It's something. So yeah, this one's a tough one because it's hard to decide where I want that focus point. And I think ultimately this might be a good example of when a tripod actually would be the better tool for the job, because I could kind of set it, take the shot, look at it in Lightroom, see if it's in the focus point I want, and if not, adjust without losing that angle and having to try to recreate it and maybe be a little forward, a little further back, something like that. All right. One thing that's weird about this Fujifilm is if it's asleep and you go to wake it up, but your eye is already on the viewfinder, it will not show anything in the viewfinder. Kind of crazy. Okay, I think what I want is to focus on this point here. Yeah. That last one definitely wasn't it. That's the one. Because the part I wanted to be sharp was... oh, I guess my hand's going to be behind it. Oh, well. Anyway, yeah, that's the image I wanted from that kind of shot. But I think this looks cool. It's like, it's a small pile, but it looks interesting to be so close up. I mean, we could get even closer with this. This is like the best lens I think that Pentax ever made, at least for the FA line. But of course, I am also judging that based on the fact that I personally like strong telephoto lens. So on this one, oh, so you also gotta like account, yeah, there we go. Oh, I was shaking on that one. Yeah, maybe that's a little too close. And honestly, I feel like we need a little more light coming into these shots. They are a little dark. Where are we at? I'm gonna check the power on this guy here. Except I've shot it up through the roof, so I can't even get that high. Oh yeah. Well, there you go. I knew I should have checked it. I don't know how it got set to that. It might have been when I turned off and back on the light. So we weren't shooting at full power. That's our problem. That's the problem. I bet we're going to blow out this next shot. It's going to be over. I'm actually going to drop this down a bit. Let's see. Cool. Okay. Let's see if this gets us more what we're hunting for. What we're hunting for, right? Okay. Is this what I want? I want to do it like that. See, are these just too bright? No, that's much better. That's what we had a problem with. We were just shooting at half. We were shooting at a quarter power, and we needed to be shooting at full power. So that's much better looking. The only thing is, there's a couple spots that are, ooh, I don't know, is that gonna bother me if I can see the white table behind some of this? I think it is, but I'm not sure anyone else would notice. But that's an easy fix right there. Where was the other white spot? It was up here. I see it. I'll see it. I'll see it. I don't know how to fix it. Oh boy. I made it worse. It's almost like this needs to come up like that, maybe. No. Maybe I can just pull more from the back, from the side here. There we go. And then these little strips of candy bacon. Okay, that looks good. I think that would actually solve any of the holes. Cool. And then yeah, otherwise, well, I do see a few other holes, but it's not going to be perfect unless I buy another 2 bags and just dump them on top, which maybe I should start doing. Go back to the days where I would buy way too much in one go. It looks so much taller on this screen, like the stack looks huge, but in reality it's like really flat. Maybe if I shoot it super low, I can get that effect. Let's try it. And I can use this stool as like a default tripod. I don't think I've... No, I guess I focused the right way. Well, that's interesting. That one's nice and sharp. I like that. I just wonder if I like seeing any of the white or not. Maybe you have to embrace the white stuff, the white background, the white stuff. I have better words than stuff. Come on, man. Or I just get way closer, because see, that's also an option. And we focus in here. Oh, that's too close. We'd have to be like right here. That could be kind of fun. Just get like insanely close. Let's see, I don't love... Ooh, I kind of like, ooh, this one. This, okay. Guys, check this out. I think this would be the one. It don't look as good on the looks better in the camera than it does on the screen. But that's that raw. Whoop. It's just, it's nice if I can get that strong background blur in there. Maybe it's more like that. Yeah, kind of like that. Let me see. I like it, but the only thing I don't love is how narrow the focus is. I do like the background being a little bit blurred. I like the foreground being a little blurred. I just wish there was a little more width to it, which that's kind of a benefit of micro four thirds. Like if we hooked up the Olympus OMD EM10 Mark III, stick that macro lens that I have on it, and then plop it in there. How long have we been doing this? We've been in here for an hour and a half. That's not too bad. Yeah, I think this angle is a lot of fun. And maybe what it is we just have to find the right piece where when we focus on it, it puts a lot of the piece in focus. Like, wait for it. Okay, check this out. Actually, still didn't quite get it in focus like I thought I would. I'll actually drop it down a little bit because at f11, this is still a pretty sharp lens. Ooh, yeah, look at that. That gets a lot of the candy. So it is a little darker, but we can bring that up a little bit in post. I like that a lot. Let me see. We could even do something like this. Got to get up nice and close, take a peek. Yeah, I like that because it puts a lot. It puts a lot of one piece in focus, where you don't have this slice of a narrow strip where you're like, I have no concept of what this is. Now angle of everything maybe isn't as appealing as one of those previous ones, but it's like you do get to see each of the colors in focus, and so you see like what this candy is, but then you also have these sort of flowing ribbons around that, and I think I like that. You have a totally blown out background, and then you have a very blurry foreground, and so I think it really makes that one spot pop pretty good. We could maybe approach the angle a little different to get even more of that red part in focus, because that part's a little bit out. But I kind of like that. We could replicate that with another part of the candy. It doesn't have to be that exact section. But the other views looking down is somewhat busy. This shows the detail and pattern. Yeah, I agree. And I've got so many like top-down shots that, do I really need another top-down one? No. And also it is kind of nice to not have to climb up on top of this thing. So, okay. So I think we have a shot that's pretty cool. One other thing we could do is actually approach it not where it's top down, but where it's maybe not quite as low. Something like that, maybe. I mean, I definitely missed the focus there. I don't know. I think I like the other way better. Let me see here. Sometimes it's kind of experimenting a little bit until you find that spot that just works. This could also be a spot that works where we can get one of each color in focus. Ooh, yeah, this one could be good. Let's see. Ooh. That one's kind of fun. We definitely get green, blue, yellow, and red in focus, but then we have a good kind of mix of fore and background. I don't know if I like that dark spot to the right of it though, but I mean obviously we can post-process that a little bit, but I kind of like it. It almost seems more natural. Like the other one where it's like sticking up, it's kind of hard to tell that it's sticking up because it's going over. It's like doing that. But this one with it wavy, you can tell like the structure of it makes a lot of sense. I think that's this piece right here. So there is kind of like that dark area. So now I'm thinking it's just all about finding a spot that you can kind of hone in on. Ooh, actually there might be one there. That one probably not. This one maybe, but it'll be against the light, which sometimes can be fun to shoot against. I don't think I can get the camera in the spot that I'm thinking, but what am I looking at? Okay, I'm pointed there, come up, that's my subject. I definitely wouldn't do it from that angle though. Maybe from like right here. This is the worst way to shoot it. I don't know. That's kind of fun too. Actually, honestly, hang on a minute. I'm not sure if I quite got the focus right. but I kind of like the layout of this one. It doesn't have as much blur though. It's less on the blur, which I'm not even necessarily a fan of it looking totally blown out one way or another anyway. I kind of like having it, like I love medium format, but like the biggest benefit of medium format is that narrow focus. And when I'm shooting candy, I don't want a narrow focus. So I need a tilt shift system to really get crazy here. But I kind of like this, even though this angle is stupid. I look ridiculous. I look ridiculous. Okay. I think this is the piece I'm trying to photograph. If I get closer to it, I can actually make it more blurry though. Oop. That tells me we're starting to run low on battery power. We didn't fire the last shot. Yeah, I think this is, it's a little shaky. It's in perfect focus, but it's a little shaky because I'm not using a tripod like a stupid. Then there might be a question about, I think this is that piece or one of the pieces that has some like yellow bleeding into the green there. But I kind of like that one. I feel like I need to at least get it. Let me plant my arm down. Maybe if I plant my arm down, I can do a fake tripod here. But see, I'm getting a little closer to the subject than what I wanted. Anybody watching any good TV shows? See if one of those worked. Ultimately, I probably ought to just boost the ISO so that I can increase the shutter speed. It's more ribbon-like. Yeah, it is. It's a little more ribbon-like, which I think is good. Let's see. How blurry is it from motion? Yeah, might be a little bit. Like it would be so sharp if I... Well, actually, it's pretty sharp down here. So I think this is actually just not in as much focus because these are actually pretty sharp. So this top part is just kind of out of focus. It's not perfectly... But, I mean, could they pixel peep back in the film days? They could not. If it looks in focus, it is in focus, right? I mean, honestly, I should just be using a tripod, though. Sometimes I just get it in my head that I'm like, I'm not going to use a tripod, and you can't convince me otherwise. But that said, I think the other element here is the angle of this. There's just a little bit of white up in the top that I want to get rid of, but I don't really want to mess anything up here. Oh, there we go. That came out easy. Oh, don't drop the camera. Okay. So this... I don't think that helped at all. What the heck? There we go. There we go. Okay. I'm actually just going to increase the ISO a little bit. Can't be afraid to increase the ISO. Sometimes it needs it. This freaking thing. Oh, that might have been perfect. That might have done it. Dang it. I think it did. Perfect. Oh, wait. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. Now I just need to get this bad boy in focus. Okay, that was faster shutter speed. Yeah, okay, that worked. That's a better look. It just needed a little extra ISO and a faster shutter speed. Now, I don't know if we got it in focus, but I definitely feel like the colors and brightness and everything look much better. Let's see if we got it. We have to wait for this to kind of... Oh, yeah. This is nice and sharp. It's a little soft here at the base because it kind of like bends outward, but it's nice and sharp through here. So that would be the shot then, like not necessarily that's the shot, but like of this angle, that's the shot. We got it, we're done. We could move on to a different shot and see what works best. YouTube has replaced my TV watching except for motorsports. The F1 race was interesting last week. Brother, don't even get me started about the F1 race. I did not know that you were an F1 fan. I think my hands are steady, but I learned to up the ISO regardless. Yeah, okay, two things. One, I'm from the photography generation where ISO was like this scary thing. And everyone was like, you have to shoot at ISO 100. And that's when I started photography. And there obviously were some good reasons for that, like older cameras, the ISO isn't as good. That said, having shot really old cameras from like 2004, 2006, like, okay, the ISO is not that bad. Like, people were being ridiculous. But when I first got started, like anyone I knew that did photography, whether they were amateurs like me or professionals, they were all like, oh, you have to shoot at ISO 100. And then it kind of became this thing where it's like, oh, I don't want to get caught shooting at a higher ISO, because I was dumb back then, more than I am now. But that was also kind of the time period where like photographers would really gatekeep their settings. So like if you're out shooting with your buds, it's like it's forbidden. You should never ask what setting someone's using, because then you're stealing from them, or I don't know, it's so dumb. I look back on all that stuff now. It's like, who cares if I tell someone what settings I use? Like, so what? If my image is that good, then they should be able to copy my settings exactly, and mine should still be better. But, heaven forbid someone takes a good image also. But yeah, I remember ISO, like, you should never go above ISO 100. And then what a freeing experience it is when you learn that actually there is some benefit to shooting at higher ISOs. Like, as an example, dynamic range tends to improve at like ISO 400 to 800. It definitely varies based on the camera. But yeah, like one of my Sony cameras, the best dynamic range was ISO 800. So if you were trying to maximize your dynamic range, you would want to shoot at ISO 800. So yeah, and honestly, like noise is not as prevalent as people claim it is, or not as damaging as they claim it is. But yeah, it's like you got to be able to shoot at higher ISOs, and what you really have to do is you just have to like mess with your gear and learn it and learn like what ISOs are acceptable for your individual camera. And I am still learning that on this Fujifilm, but like on the Pentax 645D, you would think a medium format digital camera from 2010 would probably not do well at higher ISOs. But honestly, this thing is pretty impressive. Like you literally can use every single ISO that it has and actually get pretty clean images. Even I think the highest it can do is 6400 ISO. So it doesn't go very high. But even that is actually usable, which is insane. Oh, but then the other thing I was going to say is Formula One. Like, oh my God, I'm such a huge Formula One fan. Always looking for people to talk Formula One with. And you're right, that race was awesome. But I will say my favorite driver is Carlos Sainz. So you can imagine I didn't have the best weekend when I saw him have the accident. I was like, oh man, I was so looking forward to see where he would, what he could do in the Williams. But that happens, every driver has an accident in a season. I don't think anybody doesn't have at least one mess up. So hopefully that was his for the year. But it was nice to see Alex Albon do 5th place and like fend off Ferraris and stuff. It's like, okay, maybe this Williams has a little something in it this year. Maybe it's not the train wreck of last year. And also, who's your favorite driver, or even favorite driver, favorite team? My favorite driver is Carlos. By default, that's probably going to be my favorite team. Oh boy, this thing keeps falling asleep, I think is what it is. I need to set it to never fall asleep. There we go. But yeah, Ferrari is probably my team, like everyone else in the world. But right now, Williams is my team because that's where Carlos is. And honestly, that blue looks good. The red looks good, but the blue looks good too. All right, so we have that shot, and I think that's done. I should even write it down. It's number 164 because I think that's what I wanted from that angle. I'm gonna take a look at like 1 or 2 more angles, and then we're gonna be done with the shooting component here, so that we can play around with some editing a little bit. I am liking the low angle. That's been a lot of fun. I kind of wonder if we can play with like maybe a more of like a 45-degree angle now. Maybe this one. Let's see. No, that one's not. My niece started to watch F1. Her friends watched it live at like 1 a.m. I recorded them. I just would like Alonso to at least win one race. That would be awesome to see Alonso win a race. I feel like in 23, they were getting like podiums and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, Aston Martin looked like they were going to be a big deal, and then 24, not so much. But, I mean, Stroll actually did, what did he get, like 6th or 7th in Australia, so maybe there's a little more bite in the car this year. Let's see. I wonder if even just like sometimes it's kind of cool to do like an isolated thing, like get the pile of it, But if we're gonna get the pile, I want to get the whole thing. I don't want to get just part of it. that's really bright for some reason. Okay, maybe we back off of... Oh, probably because we upped the ISO because we were shooting at a darker angle, so this may be better then. Yeah, it would be cool to see... Be cool to see Alonso do well. I would really love to see... Honestly, like, I would love to see Charles and Lewis do well in the Ferrari. I think that would be cool. Obviously, it would be a cool story for Lewis to kind of have his comeback and win the 8th World Championship. I mean, like, who wouldn't want to see that? Especially after, like, 2 years of kind of 2 or 3 years, really, of having, like, really bad luck, a bad car, bad performance. And then he comes back with Ferrari and wins an 8th. That would be really cool. I'm a big fan of Charles Leclerc, so I would love to see him win his first world championship. And, I mean, I don't think Carlos is going to win a race, but if he did, that would be sick. If he won a race in a Williams, that would be intense. I mean, if he could win the, both titles in a Williams, that would be unbelievable. I mean, literally, it would not be believable. But yeah, I would love to see him do well. I guess Lando or Oscar. I'm not a really big Lando Norris fan, though. So I don't know. But I feel like Lando will win this year. Who else is good? Alex Albon. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Maybe not. I would love to see Lance Stroll do bad. Maybe, who else do I want to see do bad? I would love to see Max do really bad, and just see what that's like when Max isn't dominating. How does he drive? Oh, Yuki. I'd love to see Yuki do really well. Just as like a FU to Red Bull for not giving him a shot. And I'm very curious who's going to end up in the Cadillac. I don't think it's going to be... It could be Checo, but I don't think it's going to be... everyone was saying it's going to be Ricciardo, but I think he's truly done. I think he's out. I would love to see Ricciardo go to IndyCar or go to like NASCAR or something. I don't think I like this pile. Actually, I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, it's a little overexposed. But I like the races that the underdog teams have surprise wins. Yeah, definitely. Well, especially when you have seasons where you have like one driver win the entire season. It's like, well, that's no fun. At least if you could have like last year, 2024, you have so many different drivers winning. That was really cool. But it is also interesting those times where you have someone take a surprise victory from the midfield, and it's like, ooh, that's kind of cool. My niece is more about the looks of the race driver, but she's 18, so that's normal. Yeah, for sure. And they play that up too, so it's understandable. So I don't know, what are we feeling about this pile shot? Do we like it? Do we not like it? I don't think it's the strongest, but it's not bad. Maybe if we had the GFX RF, this shot would look better, but all we've got is this old piece of crap. We don't have that new one, so people are going to be pissed at me for saying that. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to try the shot again. I feel like maybe it's also kind of like an angle problem with this shot. Oh, my flash doesn't like that. Yeah, that's out of sync. Okay, how about this? We'll put it back in sync. Why is it still doing that? That's better. I don't know. Maybe this just isn't the play. Or maybe we just need like a larger pile for this one to work. My flash is making a weird sound. I don't like it. Okay. You know, I don't hate that. It's a little overexposed, but we can bring it down a little bit. And actually the benefit of overexposing is we'll get a little more pop, I think, to it, which is nice. I really liked that other shot that we got. I feel like that other shot might be the one. Let me just look around here. There is a shot here, but it would be so deep in the shadow that it might not do well. That's not curly enough. This one actually, if we were to shoot straight down, we could kind of align here, but I don't know if I like that this one ends there. So maybe we call it here and we jump over and just play around with editing one of these for the moment. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then in the editing process, that may then kind of clue us into whether we feel like we got the shot or we need to keep shooting. So let's do that. Whoa, oh my God, I almost died. Even when I think I'm not going to do that, I do it. Oh, whoops. Forgot to turn that back on. Classic me. I was just saying that is really cool getting to shoot those vintage races. Like that's a really neat experience to get to do that. My dad used to race in SCCA, and they would do like Formula 500 races. So I have some photos that I was too young to have been the photographer for, but photos of him with his race cars and stuff they're really, really cool. I should maybe do like a video just on that. But they still have like the Formula Vintage, and I gotta say, like last year there was the runoffs for the Formula V's, and I don't know how many people were watching, but like they had the web stream, and man, I mean, you talk about wanting to see a lot of overtaking and an interesting race where you genuinely, up to the very last straight, you have no idea who's going to win. That race was that. I mean, it was like every turn someone else is getting in front and then someone else is getting back, and literally like down the final stretch, someone pulled a Hail Mary and ended up jumping someone else. It was just like, wow, man, that's crazy. Edge of the seat action right up to the end. But yeah, those are fun. I'm planning on actually attending an IndyCar race this year, and I'll probably bring the Canon R7 and have a chance to like photograph some of that stuff. So it would be pretty cool if that ends up happening. Most were shot on my Kodak DC 5000 back in the early 2000s. And then I guess, is that the camera you posted a few on your Instagram that I think were with that camera? They were really good. Okay, so let's jump into, I think I have Lightroom set up here. Perfect. Whoops. What the heck? What happened to Lightroom? Let's see. Oh, this became a window capture. Display capture, I think is what we want. Yeah, I pulled up an article on the Canon GFX RF because I was like, oh, maybe we'll talk about it. And then we did a little bit. Okay, so we have some images here. And the pile, you know, I think it's an interesting concept, maybe. But I'm not sure in the current state I like it. Like, I don't like this area being like cracked. I don't like that. But boy, it is sharp. Dang, that's nice and sharp. And then there's like a piece over here that like broke because it's so brittle. So I think when I go to try to like build my structure with this candy, I'm gonna have a little bit of a problem. But I guess it is what it is. But yeah, I'm not sure I like that shot. And then there was this one. And then this is, I think, the one that we said was like, oh yeah, bingo, we're done. Because yeah, this is nice and razor sharp. Interesting, there's like a little fiber up here. That's weird. Microplastic. Oh man, there's a broken piece up here. I don't think anyone will notice though. Well, maybe they will, but does it matter? Probably not. Dang it. That's the perfectionist in me. So actually, let's edit this one because I do like this one and it is sharp where I wanted it to be. It's got a bit of a blurred background, blurred foreground. I mean, that's ultimately what we were looking for. And yet, the benefit is that right here, we have a piece that is perfectly in focus and shows us each of the colors, and you can really see it. And then you got all the spaghetti stuff happening in the fore and background. So I feel like it's a good mix. So I don't edit these much. That said, I did do a little testing, and when it comes to this sensor, as we learned, it's not going to produce as rich a color in Lightroom. It actually seems to produce about the same image in Pentax's native software, and maybe we'll open that up too. Didn't even think about that. But we know at least in Lightroom, it's going to produce an image that's pretty, like if I'm looking at it right now, it's pretty true to what it looks like in reality, but we want to punch it up a little bit, like what we would see a little more natively in the Pentax 645D. So one thing that is often lacking is a little bit of contrast. So we are going to add at least plus 10 contrast. And then we will, I think, increase what we're getting in the shadows by like maybe 15. I don't want to overdo it. And then I'll usually pop this down, not that far, but like maybe 22. Already this is looking better just with those 3 changes. Like if we look at before and after, that's before, that's after. It's subtle, but the contrast goes up, the colors pop a bit more, they look a little more rich, not quite as faded. And so that already looks way better. And I think if we play with maybe like 20, Yeah, I mean, I like that a lot better. And we're still maintaining color accuracy here. We're just really popping those colors a lot better. So that looks really good to me. I like this candy. I didn't think I was going to like it as much in this sort of setup. We don't really need to add any sharpening, which I just did, but we really don't need it. And we could kind of play around with, like, I never like adding clarity because it just, that was another thing from back in the day. When I first started photography, everyone was like, oh yeah, you got to put clarity up. It's like, no, that looks so bad. But sometimes I like to pull clarity, like by like 10 to 20, and just kind of create a softer look. I don't know if I'll keep that, but it's interesting. Probably not do anything with that particular field. Sometimes it can be kind of fun to play around with here. Like we lose a little contrast, but then we stick it back in. And then kind of pop it here. I don't know. What do we feel about that? It's really mostly lightening the shadow. Or I'm sorry, darkening the shadow. That might be too much. I like to see how people edit. I do very little, but mostly shadows and contrasts. But I prefer a reversal film look. Yeah, I mean, we could also make it a little more faded too. Now, what's nice about this, I'm looking at the candy. One thing that I noticed on these sensors that the GFX and the 645Z I was seeing was that like the reds were coming out like way too magenta, and on the 645D they were coming out like red, like a good red. But here, I mean, I'm seeing the red that I want, so I don't know. And I'm also kind of like peeking over at the actual candy there. But like the colors are looking good. I like these colors. So I don't think we really need to play around with the color at all, surprisingly. I was expecting to have to kind of go in and finesse the red a little bit or kind of play with the green a little bit, but I think it looks good. So we really have done almost nothing to this aside from just a few basic corrections and then kind of pulling the clarity back to, I mean, we've added texture, but then we've pulled clarity. So like, I don't know, that kind of goes against one another. Maybe we'll put that back though. What if we increased? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to reduce the clarity. I think maybe about 15. So then if we look at before and after, this is before, and then that's after. And I think I like that. It just adds, I don't know, it makes it look finished. It adds some punch to it, it increases the color saturation a little bit. It sort of darkens the shadows a bit, kind of accentuated the highlights. So I think that looks pretty good. And the white balance, thank God we noticed the white balance was off, because the white balance is perfect here. But had we left it, we might have been too blue or not blue enough. Let's see. The colors look good. Thank you. Are Fuji Raw's DNGs? I don't know. They are, well, they're .RAF, I believe is what they are. Oh yeah, it's right here. .RAF, which I think is like Fujifilm's. I don't know what RAF stands for though. I wonder if I can look it up here. What does Fujifilm RAF stand for? I mean, does, like, when someone has a RAW, what's the difference between a RAF file and a RAW file. I bet they're just like, oh, that's just same thing. Fuji calls their RAW RAF. Nikon calls it NEF. Canon CR2. So I think Canon CR2 is Canon RAW, but it's the second iteration of it. But so then it's like, what does NEF stand for? What does RAF stand for? Would be interesting to know. I've never thought about it. Never even wondered. It's just like, oh, it's just, and I think ARW is Sony's, if I remember right, from back in the day. And then, yeah, to your point, PEF for Pentax. But it's like, what is PEF? Obviously, it would be Pentax electronic file. Let's spread that rumor. PEF stands for Pentax electronic file. Nikon's was NEF, Nikon electronic file. And then RAF, oh, geez, I don't know. RAW, raw automatic Fuji film. That one needs a little work before we spread that rumor. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately there's probably, I always got to sleep on it. And then I wake back up, I look at the file again, I say, oh, I need a little more of this, I need a little more of that. And then, then I'm kind of in a good shape. But I almost wonder if I could use a little more. Ooh, I kind of like that. Just increasing the exposure ever so slightly. All right. Now that's perfect. Okay, that's perfect because it really has that pop. Like it really looks bright. It's in your face. And it's just like, boom, you're double taken on that one, You're walking through the gallery and you're like, boom, what's this all about? This is like someone threw like a what do they call that type of grenade? Oh gosh, I forget what it's called. Let's back that back down. But actually, so at plus 43, that's looking pretty good. What does it look like if we go all the way? I mean, I guess we get more rich detail, but yeah, I almost feel like it does need to come up to like 35, but then to get back some of that, we could drop the shadows a little bit. We could also increase the shadows, and like the benefit is it does get that sort of candy store look. Like in the candy store, the candy's always like shadowless almost. And then I definitely don't like it with too much shadow. So I would say either as shot or boosting the shadows a little bit. Kind of like that one better. And then it does go a little too blurred in the way back here, but I feel like that just helps kind of draw this in a bit. So it's not too bad. I'm glad it's not that level of blur in the front, because I think that then gets distracting, like when it's too blurry in the foreground. The foreground needs to have some concept of what it is, in my opinion, at least for this candy type stuff. Cool. So yeah, that would be one, like we mark that one. And see, like, here's something, the perfectionist in me, which I'm already not thrilled about this having like a little break here. But like if we zoom in, you can see just ever so slightly a little bit of white from the background. And there's no other white in the shot. And so it's like, ooh, no, that would bother me. I would have to reshoot it. And I wouldn't even crop it unless it was the perfect shot, and then maybe, but typically I don't like to do any cropping. These are actually pretty sharp too. All the way up to the top. Not bad. And this one is just a even closer version, but again, it does have a little white in it. That one still does too, but how was this? This one I think was when I was shooting at, probably still shooting at 1/80th of a second. That was too slow for handheld in this case. Although some of these would be usable. This one's interesting. Like, I wonder if we took this shot and just apply the settings. It was definitely underexposed, so we'd have to bring it up a bit. But yeah, this one could also be, this one could be good. It has less of an extreme blur to the background. I'm going to flag that one as like one worth looking at again. Not quite as sharp. You can see there was a little bit of camera shake, just ever so slight. But it's so slight that would absolutely be passable. And maybe actually even one of these, sometimes you get lucky and you fire a couple of them in a row and one of them sticks, even though you're using a slower shutter. There was this, but I think this was shot at f8, so it had an even narrower view. But I think this was like the first one where we're like, oh wait, maybe. Oh no, this was the one, because it was like it was sticking up, so it was easy to kind of line this up with the pane of focus. I want to say it was like one of these shots, which if we'd shot this at f11, it probably would have been even more in focus. But yeah, I don't think I like that one. Yeah, with the new Fuji RF 100, cropping would not be a problem. That's true. That's true. Just crop all day. That is a thing that I also just am like, I don't know. I feel like that's a sales gimmick. When they were showing like off the 100 megapixel and they're like, look, you can crop it significantly and it still looks like a normal shot. And it's like, yeah. But then like, I don't know. Actually, I think that one works better than the other one I did. At least where it was like vertical like that. Yeah, honestly, I think that other one's the shot that we'll go with, at least for tonight. So yeah, then when you look again at like the top down shot, it's like this becomes so busy. So your point about it being busy is definitely correct. But I think what we would have to do to make it work better is just bring up the aperture, like bring it up from f11 to f4, so that we're back to having a narrow sliver, and then just focus, like find a point, one of these, I don't know if there is one, maybe like this spot here, or maybe this spot here, where you can get a line of colors in focus, but then the background and the foreground become blurry. But I don't know. I think it may just be too much happening. Or I would almost want everything to be in focus then, in that kind of shot. But I don't think we had the settings quite dialed in either, so we're kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage on that front. But like, yeah, maybe like this, it kind of works. It's not quite in focus all the way across, but it's close enough. And then you do have some that are a little more blurry in the foreground or the background. So this could kind of work, be like a little bit of an example of it being not too busy, but yeah. And then earlier, these were kind of the shots where I was saying like, this is a little too dark, or we have like the table showing down here, and I don't like that unless we had like a cooler backdrop that we were using. And then here's some where they were turning out straight blue, warm. Yeah. So razor thin. Cool. Well, I think this one is actually pretty cool. I'm just gonna like keep a track of this by just exporting that. And I think the other one that was really cool is this one. Although now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking maybe we back this down to like, how about 20? Oh, 25. Just not quite as bright. But yeah, I like these a lot better. Just looking at them, I'm like, yep, that's fun. And it's got a little bit more 3D pop than some of the other stuff I've been doing lately. And that's kind of a goal for this year, is maybe to produce less total candy art images, but to try to incorporate a bit more of like a 3D effect. And that doesn't always need to mean that stuff is in focus and out of focus. It could also mean like everything's in focus, but there's like dimension to the shot, you know? So that's kind of a goal for a lot of this stuff this year, as opposed to last year. But nice. So I think I did that one, and I think that's it for those. Okay. So yeah, that's basically how we do the candy art. I gotta turn this other light off though. It's too bright. Oh, I got shocked again. I wonder if it's my shoes that are doing it. Because when I didn't have the shoes on, I wasn't getting shocked. That's better, although it's dark because I forgot to turn over the headlight. But yeah, I liked that. I liked the way that came out. I am going to try to build a structure with that candy. Like I'm going to try to, I don't know, like use like a really long straw, maybe. Probably I need something stronger, like more structurally sound than like a plastic straw. Maybe like a skewer, like a wooden skewer. Like put that into some kind of base and then wrap this candy around it and build like a structure, like a pole of this candy. And then I'm thinking like what could kind of branch off of there? Like maybe there's little gummy bears, maybe there's gummy snakes. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, the candy is like climbing. Like that isn't the intent, but like to make it more 3D and to have more of a still life component where I'm like building a structure or I'm building a sculpture and then photographing. Like a lot of times I'm just kind of patternizing the candy or making piles with the candy, and that's fun. And you can make some abstract stuff with that. But to actually create a sculpture out of candy, like with glue, and turn it into an arts and crafts session, and then you photograph the structure, it adds like a whole nother layer to it that I think would be really fun, but also really challenging because I suck at arts and crafts, to be honest. So, but yeah, anyway, I want to kind of take it that direction and just see if it works out or not. Like maybe the structures I create will be really lame and stupid and everyone will say, wow, bad job. Can't believe you did this. But maybe people will like it. I don't know. One other thing that we can look at is we've been talking about it. Might as well look at this thing. I don't know why this is reversed. There is a way to flip it. How do I flip it? Transform. And we say flip horizontal. Boom. That way I'm looking the same direction. Great. Weave it. Yeah. Maybe there could be like a weave thing happening. That could be cool. Maybe it could even be taking inspiration from a hammock or a spider web or something like that, where it's, you know, sort of like a structure that's like a catch net for a bunch of other candy. I don't know. That's an interesting idea, though. I'm gonna put that up here. Yeah. So we've been talking about this guy, and I was kind of looking at it, and I just don't really get it for like the price and everything. Like I heard someone, and I don't want to call anybody out, but I heard someone kind of saying like, oh, it's the big brother to the X100V or whatever it is. And it's just like, but why would you need that? Why would you want it? You know? Like, I guess they were trying to, like, I feel like the video I watched on this, even the presenter was trying to like really stretch and be like, oh, this is what you'd use it for. And it's just like, I don't even think you feel like you believe what you're saying, you know? I don't know. I just think for like the cost and everything, I mean, they're not the first ones to do it. Like we already said, and I don't know, maybe we could look up like the phase one that I was thinking of. There is also a Leica one as well, but phase one, I think it's the XF. No, okay, it's not. The XF is legit. Like, look at that. It looks like an old, okay, it's something else. If anyone knows what it is, tell me, but it's a fixed lens and it's really flat. It's not like the XF, where the XF, maybe we just go to their website. But like this to me reminds me of my Mamiya camera, right? Like this is modular. I don't know if it's as modular as my Mamiya is, but like you can pull this back off and you can pull the lens off. And I want to say like maybe the grip or the viewfinder, because there is at least a version of this camera that does not have a waist level viewfinder. It has a traditional prism viewfinder. So I think maybe that part is, oh, here's maybe the camera. Maybe XF is not a specific camera, but it's like the whole thing. This doesn't even seem like the right website. Where's the products page? Photographic cameras. Explore. Yes, I would love to explore unforgettable photos. Here it is, XT. That's what it is. The Phase 1 XT. So yeah, the XF. See, this one, it does have a prism viewfinder. I mean, this looks almost identical to my Mamiya, which makes sense because Phase 1 merged with Mamiya and Leaf and created one powerhouse camera brand. That's weird. They don't even show you the pictures. These cameras are so expensive, they don't even show you the models. You literally have to email them about purchasing a camera. That's hilarious. I mean, these are like $50,000 or plus dollars. God, that is a beauty. I think that's probably my dream camera, because a dream camera has to be something you could never buy, and I'll never be able to buy that. But Phase 1 XT, so now we know what it is. We can go in here and we can say Phase 1 XT, not XF. Portable medium format. Well, they're all portable. So I guess what it is you actually do still stick the same back on. It's just the body is this. But my understanding is it is a fixed lens setup, and it's like a 23 millimeter or something. So in medium format terms, it's like super, super freaking wide. But I guess you do ultimately slap the same back on the XF or the XT, which I guess makes sense. But that does mean it's 150 megapixels versus Fujifilm's 100 megapixel. But where Fujifilm's is like 5,000 probably. I don't know. I didn't look at pricing. This bad boy's like 30,000. So it's a whole nother level. So this is obviously much more compact and kind of consumerist than the XT is, but it's sort of the same concept. It's like 100 plus megapixel sensor with a fixed lens, and this image makes it look so small, but you know this thing is huge. Like, let's look at these pictures. Whoops, I didn't even click a button. Yeah, I don't even like this front part though, to be honest. Oof. No flash. So like if it's a travel camera, where's the flash? And this also does not articulate. This is only a tilting screen. So if you're traveling and you want to take a selfie, it's not going to be possible to do easily with this. And I also feel like at this day and age, like every brand should have, I will die on this horse or on this hill. I mean, every brand should have a double hinge tilting, fully articulating LCD screen. Why is that not the default? I know it does like make it a little thicker, but with the technology of today, we can machine pretty thin parts. And so like the original double hinge articulating screens were pretty thick, but now they're getting a lot thinner. So like the fact that this is only tilting is kind of just like, I don't get it. There's probably a patent though. This is maybe why. Yeah, and then people were talking about like the dial that changes the aspect ratio and like how that's kind of dumb to pre-crop. But you know, I do like that it at least has something you can actually interact with there. 2-card slot. Couple of buttons. I mean, the scroll wheels look decent. I like how it's like built into the deal. And then you have HDMI, remote, headphone, USB, pretty standard. Battery. I wonder what battery it uses. I do think it looks cooler with that hood on. Like that hood does look cool for sure. It's not a bad looking camera. It's just like if this camera would be way better if you could just pop that lens right off and put a different one on. But the lens hood does look dope. I like it. I don't know if it works in all versions, but yeah, it's like this yes, I love a tilting mechanism, right? Because it keeps it in line with the camera. But it should also, like on the plate that the thing is on, it should be able to flip out. And Fujifilm already has designed that. The camera I have does it. It just flips the wrong direction. So it's like it flips away from the... Anyway, I've said it enough. Mm-hmm. Okay, there we go. Actually, not as big as I was thinking it would be in the hand. It's still honking, but it's not as honking. I mean, this guy still can't even get his pinky on the damn thing. That's a grip issue, though, because it's such a shallow grip. Well, okay. So, I mean, is it a bad camera? No, it's not a bad camera, but it is a camera that I think people are going to struggle to explain to you what the purpose of it's for. Because you could take your GFX. I mean, they already have the, what's the model? There's a model that they already have that already is flat. It's the GFX. Oh my God, is it the GFX R? The 50R? I think it is. You have the 50S and you have the 50R. But the 50R, it is pretty big, but it can do all the different lens. I think the other part of it is like Fujifilm just doesn't have any small GFX lens. They're all huge. So maybe part of the benefit of it being a fixed lens is that it is smaller than the rest of their lineup. Like, I mean, that's also kind of the thing with medium format though, is like the lens are big. That's part of the, like, if you're going to buy a medium format camera, you're not buying it because it's small. Like, you know what I mean? Oh boy. It is competing with the Leica Q3. Yes, the Leica Q3 was the one I was trying to think of from Leica. And the Hasselblad X2D 100C. But isn't the X2D 100C still a interchangeable lens camera? I thought it was. I would buy the Sigma BF before I plop down 5K for a camera. Sony has one that tilts and flips. Yeah. Yeah, the first big brand, I mean, actually that concept has been around already for a while, but the technology was just hard to do it with. But Panasonic with the GH6 and the GH7 did the fully articulating but also fully tilting screen, and it was like, oh my God, this is a no-brainer. Every camera should have this, because then you can tilt if you're doing stills photography, and that works so much better. But then when you need to flip it out so that you can do a talking head video or take a selfie, then you have that capability. And also, if you're doing a portrait that's really far down low, you'd be able to still tilt up and be able to see it. But anyway, brands, they're not doing it. Sony did it with the A7R5. So, but they didn't have it on the A7 IV or the A7R4. So it'll be interesting to see with the A7 V, do they also have that? Because I think so far the A7R5 is the only camera that they've put that double hinge tilting and fully articulating screen on. But anyway, more camera brands definitely need to do that screen type, because it would just, if Canon came out with a Canon R7 II, I wouldn't have much interest in it because I already have the R7. But if Canon came out with a Canon R7 II that had a double hinge tilting, fully articulating LCD, I would have to buy it. And I would hate myself for that. The lens hood does come with the camera. That's good. I wouldn't be surprised camera brands these days being like, oh, you got to pay extra. The silver one looks better. Reminds me of the Lumix S9. People were confused, but this is an expensive confusion. Yeah, that would be a hella expensive confusion. Hopefully expensive enough that you'd pause and be like, wait, something's wrong here. So, I mean, okay. In my opinion, the worst part of this camera is its fixed lens on a medium format. Maybe people disagree with me. 102 megapixel sensor, that's great. But here's the thing, I don't want to crop it. I want the whole sensor if I'm going to have it, you know? I don't really want to crop unless I need to just a small mistake, but I don't want to be relying on that. 35 millimeter, it's a 28 millimeter equivalent, which, I mean, 28 millimeter, it's not wide enough to be wide, and it's too wide to be standard. I don't like 28 millimeters, to be honest. That's like the millimeter range that I hate the most. F4 lens with leaf shutter, so it's not that bright, but the leaf shutter's cool. But then again, it's like, when are you really going to use leaf shutter for like flash stuff? Because you really wouldn't want to do portraits with this camera. 5.76 million EVF, who cares? Weather sealed, that's good. That would be crazy if this wasn't weather sealed. And it's like, why? Subject recognition autofocus, aspect ratio dial, 3.2 tilting touchscreen, 4K video up to 30 FPS. I will say, I wonder, like, as far as like, if it were trying to be a video camera, that would be interesting. I mean, I still wouldn't want it. I would want the ability to change out like lens and stuff, but the fact that it's a wider lens on a video platform would potentially make more sense. And then you could crop the video if you needed to go a little closer, like maybe that makes sense. But I wonder, like, how good are the video features actually? Because usually they're not good on the video side of a medium format. The built-in 4 EVF ND filter, that's cool. I do like that. 14 film simulations, don't care about that. Yeah, $4,899. Oof. I wish they had pictures of the silver version in this article. Yeah, man, I don't know. I think if I wanted this look, I would just get the 50R. But that's me. Of course, I wouldn't have a nice small lens with a neat little hood like that. Reminds me of, or I wonder if Fuji is seeing how many people will pay money for a basic point and shoot. Yeah, it's like point and shoots are popular, so Fujifilm wants to get in on that. I think they're also looking at cameras like the Sony A7C, where they're like, oh, they're doing a compact full frame, which I think is stupid. Like, even that camera is dumb. The A7C, it's like, it's barely more compact than just the A7. And then you're still using the same lens, which are all really huge. Like, Sony only makes massive lens, or when they do make a smaller lens, it cuts a lot of corners to be able to do that. So it's like, it didn't really make sense for the A7C, and yet people did still buy that camera. And so maybe Fujifilm's like, oh, we need a more compact, because they don't have a full frame offering. But I think Fujifilm's like, oh, the X100V series, like the X100 series, is massively popular. Like, people they can't keep it in stock. And so then maybe they're like, hey, we should just do the same thing with the medium format and see if it also works. And if it does, they will certainly pick up a lot of money. But most reviews are saying it's more of a photography camera. I saw the video is decent. Like, I guess I haven't seen the video stuff, but like the GFX 100S, or maybe it was the 102 and the 100S2, like, they added a lot of video features into those cameras, and they're still probably not really truly video cameras, but there's enough like phase detect, and there's like enough of a bit rate in the video and less of a crop to actually make it feasible to use. And Fujifilm is actually coming out with a medium format dedicated video camera. I forget what it's called. It has like an E in the name. But so like that technology is there in the 100 megapixel sensor, but it's just, did they put that into this camera? But to your point that you just dropped, there's no IBIS. So from a video standpoint, unless it's going to be all tripod shots, that's not great. And it's also just not great for the photography side. It's a 100 megapixel sensor with no IBIS. So you're not doing any slow shutter. Like, because my camera is the 50S, so it's a 50 megapixel sensor, but it's still the same size. And even that one, we just saw it at 1/80th of a second, it was already causing problems. Like we had, even with flash, which flash always freezes the shot. So, here's a 50 megapixel sensor, no IBIS, and if we go to 1/80th of a second, which I think is a reasonable shutter speed, and we're shooting flash, and yet we're still getting a little bit of blur because of the handheld component. So it's like, if a 50 megapixel no IBIS sensor has to be shooting at over 100th of a second to get a clean shot, what's a 100 megapixel sensor going to require? And you don't have a flash built into this camera. So it's going to be like a daylight only camera because the lens is also not that bright. So no flash, no IBIS, not that bright of a lens. You're going to be jacking up the ISO, which this camera probably can handle, to give it credit where credit's due. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like the crop to zoom. I don't like that concept. I think that's a bad concept. I don't think anyone should feel bad for cropping, because that used to also be a thing, like never crop your photos. But I don't think they should be relying on cropping to overcome a bad design or bad foresight. So the 100 RF, it does 4K 30, but that doesn't really tell you much about how good the 4K 30 is. And then they're showing X100V. That's not a medium format camera. They should have put like the Fujifilm GFX 102 in here so we could see what that difference would be. But yeah, the Hasselblad has IBIS. The Leica has optical IBIS. They couldn't at least do optical image stabilization in the lens. I guess it would have made the lens bigger, but it's a medium format camera. Anyway. Well, that's interesting. I know people are going to buy this and they're going to talk about how it changed their lives, how the simplicity freed them to be able to focus on the photography. But ultimately, that's just sort of a sales thing. I don't understand why they're not putting this next to the 50R. Like, I know it's a smaller sensor megapixel amount, but that would be the most comparable medium format. Anyway, be interesting to see if it flops or if it does really well. I guess that's all we can do. Luxury item for clout, absolutely. A luxury item that's really not that good. Like, I think you truly would be better served buying a 100V and then using the leftover money to take a trip somewhere and actually use it, or to buy like a nice kind of like accessory infrastructure for it, Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that camera. I think the other big one that I was going to touch on, and we're getting kind of close to the 3-hour mark here, so I may probably wrap it here soon, but the other one I was thinking about a lot lately is Olympus, or rather OM System. And I feel like I saw an article, and I think the tagline of the article was like something along the lines of, is OM System painting themselves into a corner that they can't get out of? Specifically in regards to the direction of their marketing and sort of like the direction that they're trying to go in, being the idea that like they're trying to, I think, become a niche brand. And I think they're basically saying like, we're not even going to try to compete in the larger photography market. We're going to hone in on just one specific thing and try to become the brand that's synonymous with that thing. And their thing is outdoor. Like, I think their thing is literally outdoor, but it may even be more specific than that, where it's like they're trying to just basically say like, oh, if you're doing wildlife photography and you're hiking a lot, we're the brand for you. And they're kind of like exiting all other markets. And it was, so the article was like, is that a bad call? Like, because ultimately Fujifilm, Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, all these brands, they're competing on a much wider market, but they will also be interested in being a brand that caters to wildlife photography. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I made a video last year talking about how I thought Olympus should do a medium format camera. And a lot of people disagreed with me on that. But and they made good points too, to be fair. Like, absolutely. But I still feel like they should do that. Because I feel like in the Micro Four Thirds world, it gets a lot of bad reputation. But I kind of think of it as similar to the ISO situation that I talked about earlier, where like in 2015 to 2017, like everyone was basically saying you should only ever shoot at ISO 100, and you get kind of crap for shooting at higher than ISO 100. But that was a fad in a way. Like, eventually people woke up and realized, oh, there's literally no reason to only shoot at ISO 100. We should be leveraging other ISOs on our camera. Like, there are definite benefits to doing that. And so eventually people kind of stopped talking like that. And now I never hear people saying that kind of stuff. And like, anyone who does say it now sounds like really misinformed and really not knowledgeable about photography, right? So I wonder if maybe that will happen with Micro Four Thirds too, where people, they're kind of dumping on it right now. And 90% of videos about Micro Four Thirds is Micro Four Thirds still, does it still have a place in 2025? And it's like, yeah, it does. It's so weird to be like so critical of Micro Four Thirds, but then yet people are fine using even smaller sensor sizes when they're using GoPros and they're using, like various other cameras. They're like, a 1-inch sensor? Yeah, this is awesome. This GoPro now has a even larger 1-inch sensor. It's like, wait, so that's cool, but Micro Four Thirds is not? It doesn't make any sense. And Micro Four Thirds definitely has some benefits to it, like, for sure. And I'm not going to go into them right now because it's already been hashed out by many other smarter people than me. But yeah, I wonder if Micro Four Thirds will exit the unpopular side and become popular again at some point in the future. But I don't know. I feel like Olympus is Olympus has some components of their cameras that are really exceptional. Like, the computational photography is almost unmatched in Olympus cameras. The IBIS in Olympus cameras, or just like image stabilization in Olympus cameras, is again kind of unrivaled. Like, they're kind of leading the pack at times with how good their image stabilization is. So it's like those cameras have some strong strengths. And they've got some weaknesses. Like Olympus was definitely slow to adopt phase detect, like unreasonably slow. And I think probably a lot of that's because they're not necessarily having the best financial time, and so they probably don't have as much money for R&D as other brands. But I don't know. I just think like original Olympus competed in a lot of different markets. Wildlife and outdoors was definitely one of them, and that's a good market. Like Olympus does clean up with like wildlife photography for sure. But they were also like trying to compete in other areas, portrait photography and like, I don't know, sports photography, all that kind of stuff. And now it seems like the new OM system, they're like, oh, we're just going to be wildlife only. And I just feel like, okay, but if that doesn't work out, then your whole market's gone, you know? But I don't know, maybe Olympus will literally become the outdoor brand and that will save their company. But sorry, I'm behind here. People wanted a Pen F to compete with the X100. I mean, yeah, literally, how many times do you see a forum when it's about OM system? It's about, are they going to do a Pen F? Are they going to do a Pen F? And then they won't do it. And it's like they put out the OM3, which actually was well received. So that was a win for them. I don't know how the OM3 fits into the outdoor brand, because it actually fits more into like the hipster nostalgia vintage brand, right? But it was a hit for sure. But it's like, do a Pen F, man. Everyone's demanding it. It's crazy. Guilty of buying into an ecosystem of lens, so I understand why OM has a following. I just don't know how OM system will bring in new people if they are not expanding into cameras that are trending. Yeah. I mean, and that is a criticism of OM system, is that their demographic is 60 plus. It's like intended to be like a jab at OM system, but it is also like kind of true. Especially when I meet people that shoot Olympus, they are oftentimes 60 plus, and that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But in the long run, you do have to ask, like, will our customer base die out, or will we just always continuously, like, as people turn 60, they'll become interested in Olympus, and then we don't need young people because we constantly have everyone become 60 at some point, right? But yeah, I really do feel like you can have a market but still try to bring in a younger crowd too. And if they're buying into that lens ecosystem, then they will oftentimes grow. I think the younger generation does that less, where they'll jump ship much more than the older crowd does. And I think it makes sense to buy into a lens ecosystem. But I think with young people, they see things changing much more rapidly. Like if you're a Canon fan, they had the EOS, DSLR line. What was that, like the EF line? And they had that for a long time. So it's like, yeah, buy into the lens mount. But then they came out with the Canon EOS M mount, and that was going to be their mirrorless mount, right? And so then people jumped into that system, and then they discontinued it and brought out the RF line. And so then you're feeling a bit betrayed, because you're like, wait, I bought all these Canon EOS M mount camera lens because I thought that was going to be the next thing that would last 30 years. And they've already discontinued it for the RF line. And then you're like, well, how long is the RF line going to last? How much money am I going to invest in this? And then they do a whole new mount again. So I think that's why maybe the younger generation feels less loyal to any given brand, because even if they invest in the lens, the mount ends up changing, and then they have to just buy it all over again anyway. I don't know. Could be pulling that out of my butt, but Pentax is a slight edge with Ricoh GR. Yeah, the Ricoh GR3 or whatever the most recent one is, that was a huge hit too. That was like a really good win for Pentax. I'm still waiting to find out. You know, I always hear rumors that Pentax is going to have a new K1 or whatever, or that they're going to do another medium format camera. And I don't know if Pentax is also kind of struggling financially a little bit and isn't able to produce, like, you see Sony, Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm putting out brand new cameras every year, all year long, like multiple cameras, and they're clearly thriving. And then you don't see Olympus doing that. You don't see Pentax doing that as much. Panasonic definitely does that a lot. They're putting out constantly new gear. Even Hasselblad puts out stuff fairly frequently. Leica. It makes sense that Hasselblad and Leica would do less because their stuff's more expensive. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. Pentax has such great stuff, but then you do kind of wonder if they haven't gone to mirrorless, is it because they just are lacking the funds to do the proper research and development? Because if they're truly sticking with DSLR, then how come they're not releasing new DSLRs? It's like feels like they're not doing anything. But I don't know. GR is something hard to evolve unless they make a full frame. Yeah, which, I mean, that could be interesting too. I don't think that would be a flop inherently if they did. But I guess that's up to them. But yeah, I don't know. I think in Olympus's case, I'd love to see them putting out more stuff, like a Pen F. I would also really love to see a follow-up to and I guess we're not going to get one anytime soon, but the OMD EM10 Mark IV hasn't had an update, but they've done an update where they now have the OM5, the OM1, the OM3, but it's like, okay, where's the OM10? You know, that sort of entry level. I would be very curious to see what they add in there. Anyway, just some thoughts. I hope Olympus or OM System, I hope they figure their stuff out and are successful, because I have some Olympus cameras and I really like my OM10 Mark III because it's so small and compact. And it doesn't really have everything I need, but it has enough to have a clear use case and be able to like have a very stylish looking camera. I mean, it looks great. Take it to parties. It's not too big, and you can, do pictures and people like it. And admittedly, like, you have to take kind of duplicate photos a lot because it will not do well with autofocusing in low light, which parties are usually low light, but it's just a fun camera. So I'd love to see them do more stuff like that. And for me, an outdoor only brand is kind of not my thing. So, but I don't know. I think OM should have tried out of the box camera, but they're held back by their followers. So change will be slow. Yeah. I think OM System, it's both their existing customer base. They've kind of gotten painted into a little bit of a corner with a very specific age group and a very specific niche, kind of like wildlife photography. And you're not seeing a lot of younger people using it. You're not seeing people use it for portraiture or fashion or photographing sports cars, right? It's like specifically wildlife and just older demographic. So it's like, yeah, that's not going to be a demographic that's eagerly wanting to change constantly. That's just the nature of as you get older. But yeah, that does make it a bit harder for them. And I think in addition to that, I don't think financially that they're doing bad, but I just think like when they switched over to OM System, there was a lot of costs involved. And I think the infrastructure is not perfectly in place for them to be agile and to experiment and to put out a camera that might not do well. Like, I think for them, they feel like they don't have the ability to put out cameras that are massive leaps in between. Like, a lot of times they're criticized as like, oh, the new camera is basically just a firmware update from the past camera. But I think similar to that, they also don't probably feel like they can afford to put out a camera that might flop. And so they're having to be really cautious, and it's not a good place to be in. But I do hope they can work their way out of that. I'm just sad to see their marketing start to lean towards like, we're an outdoor brand. And it's like, that doesn't tell me that you're trying to get out of the rut. It tells me that you're trying to double down on the rut that you're already in. But we'll see. I mean, a medium format camera from Olympus would be a massive risk and a definite 50-50 as to whether it would be successful or flop. And I think more likely it would flop initially because their existing customer base has zero interest in a medium format camera. But man, that would be cool to see them take a stab at something like that, because the medium format market, I think, is growing. And I think brands like Fujifilm are demonstrating, we may not like this camera that Fujifilm just put out, but it clearly shows that Fujifilm thinks there is a big market to be had in the medium format realm. And you have a lot more camera brands competing in that realm, I think, now than you used to. I would not be surprised if Pentax does do some kind of medium format camera in the next 5 years. So anyway, should have called it Olympic Camera rather than OM Systems. Yeah, also the name, that wasn't good. Everyone likes Olympus. They should have been able to keep the name or come up with something. Olympus Systems would have still been better than OM System, but anyway. With that being said, I think that's going to bring me to an end here for this live stream, and I appreciate everybody jumping in. Definitely appreciate Jeff for keeping me company over the course of the stream, and I will end up posting one of these pictures onto Instagram. I'll probably do it as a story, but I think that image is good enough that down the road, the next time I do a group of 3, I'll probably include one of those in the group of 3. So it will probably end up permanently also on Instagram. And I definitely think one of those shots could end up being featured in the Candy Art series, whether it's a framed image or like a image being displayed on a TV, or it ends up in a gallery or a future zine, something like that. So everyone got to see live the creation of one that I think will end up being used in the future, which is really cool. So thank you guys for that. And again, if you saw it live, hit me with a thumbs up if you don't mind. It definitely helps kind of boost the channel. A lot of good content, I think. I mean, I guess I don't ever make content I don't think's good, but I think there's a lot of good content on the channel if you haven't seen. So check that out. And if you're watching this, it's not live. Feel free to throw out any questions, comments, future topics. We'll roll them into the next live stream, which will probably be in April. And at that point, we'll be likely either we'll probably be in the new space. So the next time we live stream, I will have probably moved, unless something happens. I end up doing a live stream in the first week of April, and then maybe we'll have one last one here in the original space. But otherwise, the OG space in probably less than 20 days will be no more, and we'll be in a brand new space, and that will be cool. So yeah, thank you all for watching and checking out the content. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And otherwise, have a great rest of March. Thanks, everybody.